So, the Scarlet Chorus and Disfavored are at each other's throats. Can't say I didn't see that coming, but the Archons might have waited until one war was over before they started another. Fighting with the rebels? I'm sure Tunon didn't see that one coming when he dispatched you to help break the siege. Who can say? War is all about compromising your morals, deciding who lives and dies. What seems like a mistake turns into your greatest call down the road. I'll say this much, our time together is anything but dull. My blades are yours for as long as you'll have me. What do you need? You've just got to know, don't you? I suppose there's no point in hiding it. Barrick and I are siblings. We share a father, if little else. I try not to think too much about some northern merchant dropping anchor in my mother's port, but it happened, and the fortunate result stands proudly before you. There were a lot of lazy days during the conquest, and among other things, I spent my off hours using messenger birds as target practice. You should have seen Ash's anger when he heard that was going on. One day, I snagged a bird that flew from the hands of a proud northern daddy. The missive was about the goings-on at the family farm. I recognized the name and handwriting from a note in my mother's belongings. There weren't too many people named Barrick in the army, so tracking him down was no challenge. I cornered him in camp, and we shared a few heated words. Some blackmail, even.
She tried to extort rings from me, and I was having none of it. Not even Graven Ash would think less of me for our father's indiscretion.
I like your confidence, but my ring belt is feeling a little light these days. Maybe you want to take me up on that offer, or I can start whispering in disfavored ears. Think about it. I've tried to get along with that ironclad knot of repression, but it would seem he's having none of it. Good riddance, then. The war's tossed us together, but nothing says we have to keep that going. The most we do for each other is try not to get the other one killed, which is more than you can say for most disfavored and Scarlet Chorus.
Well, Verse has a nasty habit of jabbering in my ear and making this war intolerable. I plan on parting ways and returning to the north at first convenience. My father will answer for his infidelity. Beyond that, I am happy to consider myself in every way unaffected. My superiors once accused me of having an impulsive streak, but I have worked to suppress it at every turn.
When you go back home, send Father my fondest greetings and thanks. If he hadn't gone to ground on my mother's dry dock, I might not be here today.
My heritage was a point of pride and distinction before I met you, Verse. Not that you would care.
I've asked myself about that several times, but unfortunately I don't have what you'd call a definitive answer. The Northerners put a lot of meaning behind family and blood. Seems arbitrary to me, but I don't want to discredit it entirely. There have been times when I acted strangely on the battlefield and could find no reason why, or gotten distracted and had thoughts I couldn't explain. I suppose there's no telling for sure, but if I had to guess... yeah. Sometimes I get messed up in my head, and learning I had a brother has helped me understand that better.
You betrayed Graven Ash, the Legion, and our northern countrymen. As far as I'm concerned, you are a traitor to this campaign. If you truly believe that, then you have missed the entire point of this conquest from the beginning. 3 years of wasted effort. Let us be clear on one point. You have my blade, but my heart belongs to Ash and the North. I am a weapon bound to you only by duty, nothing more.
At least in theory, I'm supposed to be observing history and not getting myself wrapped into it. All the same, this is the thrill of a lifetime. Rarely does one stand so close to monumental moments in the making. You're playing a very dangerous game, or maybe toying with your food. By adopting the Vendrian God, you've bloodied the waters with the chum of hope. I must ask, did you help the Oathbreakers to suit your own plans and whims, or do you genuinely wish to protect them? And what of their past actions against Kairos? Aren't you worried of guilt by association? We saw what became of Cairn for merely suggesting treachery. The Archon of Stone was said to be cavorting with the locals and suggesting that Kairos' claim to the Tears is invalid. Of course, the locals in question were the Beastman tribes, not regular folk. Not saying you're doing exactly what Cairn did, just worried someone will infer that you're up to something treasonous and need some preemptive justice.
We long held to the fantasy that someone would rally to our cause, but we assumed it would be our neighbors and cousins that rescued us from extinction. I'd never have guessed salvation would come from the enemy's court.
Whatever you do next, consider that many eyes will be upon you, for you have both delivered and taken away the Overlord's edicts, and few will know how to make sense of the latter. You are an exception the Archons cannot afford to ignore. They will likely aim to control or destroy you. Most of Kairos' edicts were either worded to end in a manner of the Overlord's choosing, or the edicts have simply continued in perpetuity. That's not to say there haven't been stories of broken edicts. They're just uncommon. The oldest is, I think, Golbraith and the Edict of Sorrows, and that tale dates back to around the year 110. Aside from you, the most recent was the Edict of Twisting Grasses, back in 380. In all these stories, Kairos' edict very clearly gives its victim a single way to escape, and someone manages it. What's never happened is the pure abatement of an edict, like using a spell of warding or cancellation. Of course. How can I help? Are you asking for an objective assessment? Or is this your way of saying you want to gossip? You must have some leverage over him, as I would have thought he'd lead us into a disfavored trap long ago. Or maybe the Legion is just that polite? I must admit, I am completely fascinated by his predicament. Ever tried diagramming the articulations of his armor? Don't. It'll only lead to madness and ruination. I know little of swordplay, and couldn't work a curve and arrow to save my life. I can't really comment on the lady.
Lady? You're just afraid to talk in front of me, clear as day. Your sweat is easier to read than your ink scribbles.
No, not at all. I just don't know how to comment on a warrior's worth, that's all.
Spare me your blather. Huh. Think that, do you? Didn't know you had such swollen hope for me.
A most fascinating specimen. I think she has great potential. A dangerous amount of potential, to be blunt. The Scarlet Furies are the fighting elite of the Scarlet Chorus, and that means floating to the top of a sea of blood and chum. We should consider ourselves lucky to have her on our side, with her weapons usually pointed away from us. Good tidecasters stay underwater. Kairos did the Tears a favor by erasing those moon howlers from history. A shame one of them escaped justice.
I like that I make you this agitated. Considering all the things that don't seem to bother you in the slightest. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of getting off on how much power you're giving me here.
Ugh. And then there's your coquettish act whenever someone calls you on your teeth. I'll be the one ready to tangle when, not if, you decide to pounce.
Salutations, Fatebinder. Or should I now call you Lord of Vendrian's Well? The Spire King? Prince of the suggestive vertical slab. That is how I met you, so that's how it's gonna stick in my mind. So if I might ask, what is your plan now? The edict no longer looms overhead, and Kairos' conquest of the Tears seems to be slipping, what with the armies and civil war. Kairos' armies made short work of the Tears. There's still plenty of anti-Kairos sentiment, but not a lot of folks with any fight left in them. But we have a few options. The classic option for a land war in the Tears is hiring Free City's mercenaries. Most of them were slain in the war, but the Bronze Brotherhood is still alive and strutting. They're stationed in Lethian's Crossing. The idea I was pitching to the Vendrian Guard. Let's arm every Beastman tribe that'll join us. The Stone Sea is home to a bevy of tribes that were freed during the war, and neither the Chorus nor the Disfavored can seem to tame them. If we really want to hate ourselves in the morning, Stalwart is pretty famous for not helping their neighbors, but also famous for being relentless at war. The Disfavored have their leadership surrounded, but the people in the storm-blasted countryside are still fighting. And while I don't endorse this, I must list all the options. The School of Ink and Quill. I'm sure there's some logic to working with them, just like there's some logic in cutting off your own head to prevent all future headaches. The Bronze Brotherhood of Lethian's Crossing aren't necessarily good company, but at least it'll be quick and easy to find out where we stand with them. We can afford them or not. They'll take a contract or not. Well, the court has a guild of mages, the Forgebound, right? They are your peers, seeing as you're all legally sworn to Tunon. Maybe you can get them to be more loyal to you than to Tunon? We could also try to drive a wedge between the Earthshakers and the Disfavored. The Disfavored are Titus family, but the Earthshakers are married in family? They were followers of Cairn and got adopted in.
You are right to call the Disfavored a family. We are far more than mere countrymen, and the strength of our legion is in the love we bear towards each other. Ever since the betrayal of Cairn, we have been less trusting of our arcane allies. The Earthshakers are a fickle academic bunch. Their principles align with their ambition, not the hopes of the North. Nor should you. They may be deceitful and challenging to manage, but they have served the Iron Legion well in the past.
So if these Archon-less mages could be persuaded to rally to us, we'd tip things in our favor. Easier said than done, of course. My first suggestion would be to build a boat. Something durable, and take our chances on the high seas far from Kairos. I have a second and more practical suggestion. Look to the horizon and slightly up. By that I mean the other spires. We should see what's atop the others. Otherwise someone else might look first. Not nearly enough, apparently. To me, they've always been axioms of navigation. You can triangulate a lot of things with the sextant and a clear view to a spire or two. We've long known the spires radiate strong magical fields, and all save the mountain spire connect to the old walls. So it's the sort of thing common folk know from afar, but avoid day to day. I would counsel you to do just that. I'm sure the events of Vendrian's Well are best explained from your mouth to Tunon's ears. Furthermore, I'd guess the Archon of Justice would want to know your take on the Archons and their divide. Well, short of Tunon giving you orders on pain of death, you have the luxury of acting on your own volition. Though the Disfavored are likely to come for you. Whatever you decide, I'm at your disposal. And I am thankful to not be a bloody pile of offal in Vendrian's Well. Life under your banner will, I'm sure, prove most interesting.
You call yourselves officers of Kairos' army, but your conduct falls short of my expectations. The court finds your accounts of Vendrian's well lacking, rife with misdirection and fallacy, fouled with baseless accusation. Silence. The contradictions in your statements will be examined, and falsities threshed from truths. If we find you have perjured yourselves, Bled and Mark will see to your fate. Fatebinder, we will start with the matter of the Archons. Graven Ash and the Voices of Nerat have declared war upon each other. In addition to violating Kairos' peace, they have thrown the conquest of the Tears into disarray. By all accounts, these hostilities began shortly after your arrival. Tell us what transpired. Could this be true? The senseless killing of a good Northman, especially the Archon's bloodkin, is no small act of war. The Voices of Nerat would answer for this crime. Your perspective is appreciated, but the dispositions of the two Archons are already a matter of record. Loyal subjects of Kairos have drawn blood from each other, a cardinal crime. Something happened at Vendrian's well to trigger this feud. The Fatebinder presents testimony. I warn you both against speaking out of turn. Something more than a mere disagreement unraveled this campaign, but I will return to that in time. Let us speak of Ascension Hall. We have heard troubling accounts of your actions, including claims that you worked with the Oathbreakers known as the Vendrian Guard. As you say, and yet that was not evident from your actions. All accounts claim that you sided with the Oathbreakers. This would be the very definition of working against the Overlord's wishes. Enlighten the court. How is this not treason? Continue. I will consider this testimony at length. The court thanks you for it. Is there anything you wish to add at this time? Your testimony is accepted by the court. The statements of our guests raise questions in my mind. There is much about this campaign that has caused me to wonder. A shipment of iron weapons was short on arrival. Where coveted iron is concerned, I don't believe it to be a clerical error. One of my agents recovered this seal in Echo Call. It belongs to a merchant collective. Lethian's Crossing is teeming with their kind. If you would root out treachery, I would advise starting there. Petitioners, leave us. I would have a private audience with the Fatebinder. Ascend and join me. You will find the way opened. This civil war, this feud, is an insult to Kairos' peace. It should not have taken the better part of a year to silence the last vestiges of the Oathbreakers. Our allies squabble while our enemies regroup. It falls upon the court to measure the extent of the damage and to execute the agents of disorder. I suspect that treachery, negligence, disunity, and greed have infected one or both of our esteemed allies. Until you are instructed otherwise, this matter is the court's primary focus. Graven Ash and the voices of Nerat must be examined in close detail. You are charged with observing the Archons and presenting your case that one of them has wrought chaos and disorder upon the Tiers. As always, you will be held accountable for what you do in the court's name, but you are free to conduct your investigation in the manner of your choosing. You must expect lies, misdirection, and manipulation. Suffer not such obstructions of justice. At first, we were not amused by your alliance with the Tiersmen, but there is a logic, a pragmatism to the situation that we are willing to entertain. You deputized our enemies to bring order out of chaos. So long as you keep them on a tight leash, we will permit this union to continue under your auspices. The opportunity to bring peace through collaboration rather than warfare is one we shouldn't ignore. But if these Oathbreakers trust you, then take advantage of the connection. If indeed Graven Ash or the voices of Nerat conspire with our enemies, this would explain much of the events in Vendrian's Well and the feud ignited therein. Be careful that you don't invite them too closely into your confidence. I would not empower the rabble by sending a servant of the court to do their bidding. Ensure that your objectives come first in all things. You see the nobles milling about this court. You hear the anxiety and uncertainty of a conquered people. Day and night I audience declarations of fealty to curry favor. What you don't see are the dungeons beneath the court, and the hundreds of Tiersmen who strained against Kairos' rule. I warrant that your Oathbreaker allies know a few of them, whether by blood or by allegiance. Let it be known that their lives are forfeit to the court's mercy, and any action meant to shatter what order we have established will be met with the swiftest reprisal. Blood will flow through these halls. Is that clear? I'm glad we understand each other. Be sure your new friends understand as well. Do not toy with the locals. Subjugate them if they will serve. Destroy them if they have exhausted their usefulness. I will not permit them to vanish into the Tiers, there to gather strength with renewed defiance for the Overlord. Your fellow Fatebinders have been busy acting as my eyes and ears. I have a few leads for you to follow. You should of course speak with your brothers and sisters of the court if you need further counsel. Though the disfavored were triumphant in the Blade Grave, I understand that their troubles within the region are unfinished. Talk to the disfavored commanders serving in the Blade Grave. Perhaps they can shine some light on the origins of this feud. The Oathbreakers were reported to be using iron armaments, more than they might acquire from looting what few disfavored they killed. Any iron in the Tiers not rusted through was made by forge-bound hands in Lethian's Crossing. Between craftsman and quartermaster, someone let iron fall into enemy hands. Investigate this matter and bring the thieves to justice. There is a final matter to discuss. A sensitive topic. In spite of the many shortcomings at Vendrian's Well, you managed to make a name for yourself. You proclaimed an Edict of Kairos, resolved its demanding conditions, and ascended the mountain spire. Any one of these feats would be worthy of recognition by the highest authority. You managed to accomplish 3. It pleases me that you grasp your role, as long as you temper it with a sense of duty. Whether by design or by accident, you have captured the attention of Kairos' army and the local tiersmen alike. This is no small opportunity, and the court charges you with exploiting your new standing to its fullest potential. You have a title in our hierarchy. However, it's a little-known secret that one's standing in the world is determined by their infamy, their deeds, and how they come to be known. Mind this notion as you bring justice to this lawless frontier. There may come a time when your deeds speak for you louder than any title. Whatever you did to capture the attention of the masses at Vendrian's Well, I would encourage you to do so again. Good. It falls to us to set a new standard for these southern barbarians. You are dismissed. Should the court have need of your presence, you will receive word. Go forth and do my bidding, and bring glory and honor to the tiers in Kairos' name.
Right.